you're not going to work and clocking out and going home. This is 24 hours a day. You have to be aware of what's going on and trends and all the different things. So yeah, I think it's still doable.
Welcome back to the Brews Line Roadshow podcast. I'm your host, Daryl, and today we are in Las Vegas. We're at Beer Zombie Brewing.
Beer Zombies Brewing, yes, sir.
Yep, and we're with Chris Jacobs. Chris is the founder and owner, and we're just going to learn a little bit about Beer Zombies, about Chris's history, and hopefully give you guys some insights. Chris, I'll start out just by saying, until I started doing a lot of research, I didn't realize how big the craft brewery industry right in this area of Las Vegas is. I was down in the Arts District last time I was here. So really a great craft beer scene. I don't know if a lot of people know that, because people come here for every other reason, right? So, but give me just a little history of Beer Zombies, how you guys got this rolling. And I know it's part of a bigger scope. So kind of walk us through that.
Yeah, absolutely. So it started with no rhyme or reason. It started on an Instagram page, me as a beer nerd posting pictures that I liked of beer. And it was called Beer Zombies because I had an art Instagram page that was called We Are Zombies. And I just separated it with no real reason behind it, but just that I was a beer nerd that liked beer and I was traveling around and getting cool beers. So I was posting pictures like everybody else was, in the early 2013, 2012 era. And then from there, I have a background in art. So my background is like street art, graffiti, graphic design, things like that. So I basically came up with a logo that was this, hot bearded zombie that has kind of become this iconic logo, and threw it on a pint glass. And the first thing I did is, I put that up and people were like, "Hey, we want to buy that." So I said, "Okay, I'll make a case of glassware." And I remember making that case of glassware thinking like, oh man, I'm going to sit on this glassware for, 6 months, and it put it online and it sold out before I could refresh it. And so I was like, wow, okay, there's something to this. And then fast forward, about a week later, somebody reached out and they said, "Hey, my job is to scour the internet and basically trademark things that aren't trademarked. I'm giving you a week head start because your logo is pretty cool." So in 2013, I trademarked the Beer Zombies logo, also the trademark for the hop beard logo. So I actually own the trademark for anything hop bearded in the United States without knowing if I was ever going to make a business. I was still running cocktail bars and, working full-time jobs, but the guy kind of scared me. And I was like, oh, if he thinks it's cool enough, maybe I should think it's cool enough. So I trademarked this logo, and then I said, okay, well, I paid to trademark it. That cost me $1,000. I better figure out a way to make that money back. So I started printing some t-shirts and stickers, and from there, it led to traveling around and popping up at, breweries and doing merch events. And then I got signed up to do festivals as a merch vendor. And through that, I started meeting people. And within meeting, other brewer owners and things like that, they realized, oh, this guy isn't just somebody that wants to sell things. He's really into this and wants to be a part of this culture. So from there, I ended up getting a collaboration in 2016, and we came out with the first Beer Zombies beer. And that's kind of the catalyst that led to everything else that we have.
Give me a little bit further back about your personal story. You mentioned the art background, and tell me a little bit. Obviously, we're sitting in your office. I know there must be some connection to LA because we have a lot of Dodgers paraphernalia.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about Chris and a little bit of your personal story.
Yeah. I mean, my background, I grew up in Northern California, super, super small town, population 3,500. I graduated high school with 150 kids in my class. Knew that the small town life, even though I loved the fact of it shaped me and molded me, it wasn't going to be where I was going to end up. Ended up moving to Las Vegas pretty quick after high school, maybe about a week or two after graduation. I was on the move. And then from here, I knew that I needed to be around something that was a little bit more hustle and bustle, and my interests were bigger than small town things. I did a lot of art and design and a lot of just legal and illegal street art as a kid. You kind of, I get to this bigger city and realize that there's a business that you can do, and you can get paid to do the things that you love. So I kind of always had that on the back burner of art. I'm a massive baseball fan. Baseball is my my happy place. It's the thing that gives me relaxation. I've been a Dodgers fan my whole life. Started collecting baseball cards in '87. So I mean, it's just one of those things that my office is kind of like my safe space. It's my man cave, right? If you look around, it looks like a teenage boy decorated it really, but it kind of is. It's trophies. It's the places that I travel. It's collaboration pictures. It's random awards, and then a lot of collectible things. I'm here all the time, so I want to be happy. I want to be comfortable.
Sure.
So yeah, and then I think that kind of this. A lot of people walk in and they say this is an exact peek inside of your brain, because I have a lot going on in my brain, and this is very comfortable to me with everything that's plastered everywhere and lots of visuals, and it just helps me kind of in a creative space. I do all the creations here. I'm doing all the labels and designs and coming up with anything that we're doing Beer Zombies marketing. I'm still handling day to day, so it just puts me into a zone where it feels like a creative space.
But yeah, it's great to be in doing things you love and being around people you love and having space that reflects who you are. You're right. When I walked in here,
you kind of get a without knowing me, you're like, okay,
I think I know. I think I know what's going on here.
I feel like craft beer in the early days was definitely a subculture, and I feel like a lot of collecting cards and comics and different things. These are all these subcultures that all have ties to it. We were talking beforehand. We're hosting a Magic the Gathering tournament. That's not a very world. I mean, it's worldwide, but it's not. If you asked 100 people if they play Magic the Gathering, maybe,
it's not a mainstream.
Yeah, maybe one or two play it, but yet they still like craft beer. So all these things kind of connect. And that's what I realized is a lot of my interest, even though they might not be beer related, they kind of have that, the circles that connect, they all overlap, and then you kind of bring together more people that way.
Take us back to a little bit of, you're running two different brands here, two different breweries. Take us back to kind of how those melded together. We talked a little bit about before we opened up, but go a little bit deeper and kind of give our audience a feel of kind of the enterprise, if you will.
Yeah, for sure. So kind of going back to where I said we got that first collaboration on the beer side. So up until that point, I had zero beer experience besides drinking it. I was running cocktail programs in Vegas and bartending. I loved craft beer. I grew up drinking craft beer. I grew up 45 minutes away from Chico, so Sierra Nevada. It was a big influence, whether you realize it or not. People that work there, their parents work there, everything. So in 2016, when I got that first collaboration, I still didn't have any idea how to make beer. So King's Brewing in Rancho Cucamonga at the time, Jeremiah, he reached out and we kind of became fast friends. And he has been like a mentor as far as really explaining how beer works and building recipes. And, we brewed a hazy IPA together. So once we brewed that hazy IPA together, it's actually on the wall, that Mosaic juice over there, that became kind of like our flagship. Like, oh, these guys not only do, merchandise and events and bottle shares, but now they're just starting to dabble into the beer world. And then from there, we started doing more and more collaborations. So I think in the first 3 or 4 years, I did about 100 to 150 collaborations, which also equals 100 to 150 brew days. So you're getting on the job training of 150 of the best breweries that how they do process and walking you through it. So from that point, I realized that Beer Zombies is going to be more than just a brand. It's going to be a brewery. So it kind of took all those years of knowledge and started in 2020 with my own line, Beer Zombies Brewing. So the Beer Zombies Brewing lines started February 2020, the first beer. And that was brewed at Mason Ale Works at the time, which was also another friend that had some extra tank space, came up with some recipes, started brewing it. And the idea was just to do one 15-barrel batch every other month. Month 2, we were already up to a 30-barrel batch. Month 4, 5, 6. I mean,
good problem.
Yeah, and then had to end up moving that to a couple different breweries because of size. And at the end of it, we ended up being at Alesmith, just doing our brews there because we needed larger tank space. So that was around 2022. We were still at Alesmith. And then I started the process of starting to design and build a brewery. The idea was we were going to move to Salt Lake City, and I found a building that was great. I've been in Vegas for 30 years. It was just, all right, let's see if we can try something else. In between that time and where we're at now, the building that we're sitting in, which is Tenaya Creek, came up for sale. So Tenaya Creek is legacy brewery, started in 99. It's the second oldest brewery in Nevada, just hit 25 years. been around for a long time, done a lot of really cool things, and the owner was just ready to be out of the business. So the same real estate guy that was helping me in Salt Lake City ended up getting this listing, and he said, Chris, you should take a look at this. It doesn't go into the market for 7 more days. You're basically getting a head start. So I got that listing on a Wednesday, and by Friday we had an offer in on the building, the property, all the tanks, everything, just because it felt, you look out there, it's a Bow Trust building. It's built in the 50s. It's 13,000 square feet. We have our own parking lot. We're close enough to Fremont Street where, you're kind of in the Vegas area. We're a little bit far away where, we're going to be built up around here and everything. It's the kind of the perfect storm. So I divested from the project in Salt Lake City, put all the attention into this project. And then when that came about, I talked to the owner and he said, hey, I would really like for you to also have the Tenaya Creek brand and, put some life into it. So not just the building and buy it and turn it into Beer Zombies. If you would take it and kind of take it to the next level, I think that would be a really cool legacy to continue. So that was part of our deal. So now, that was in 2023 of December. So it's only been, almost 2.5 years. We did a full rebrand on the Tenaya lineup, went from 12-ounce cans to 16-ounce cans, new names, kept the original recipes, but then brought them up modern. So, keeping homage to what they were, but bringing them up to 2025 from the 90s and early 2000s. So that gets brewed on top of there, and then instantly folded Beer Zombies into it. So we closed this property we put the order on a Friday. I think we closed the property, let's say on like a Monday. The first Beer Zombies brew was literally the next day on Tuesday. There was no downtime. We didn't waste, I didn't come in here and like, all right, let's get a game plan. I did it just like I did everything else. I said, we're going for this and we're going to keep going.
So since you got into the business, what are some of the things that maybe were a little bit more surprising or even some strange things that you think?
Everything is surprising. Yeah, every single day. I always joke around. I mean, I didn't know how to run a brewery. I also didn't know how to start a beer brand business. I also, it's just kind of, I just go into it and I have faith in myself and I understand business well enough that I know that I can do things. But every day is a surprise. I walk in and the biggest surprise is everything that breaks here is very expensive. There's no,
I've heard that.
There's no, hey, something broke is $100. It's everything is $10,000. There's zero from 1 to 1,000. It just keeps going. But overall, I think the surprising part is that making the beer and making that liquid gold that we do is not the hardest part of owning the brewery. Owning the brewery, the hardest part is really figuring out how you get people to come here and drink that delicious beer. And you kind of start looking at it in a different light when you're not a consumer and you're an owner. As a consumer, I'm going to the place that has the best beer. That's just what I do. I travel just like you.
Right.
I look it up. Where am I going to go? I'm going to try this best beer. As an owner, I feel that we make the best beer in Las Vegas, but how do we help other people realize that? Because Vegas is a very transient town. People come here, they gamble, they drink Bud Light. There's obviously craft beer people that search us out, which we have tourists nonstop. But it's how do you become a social gathering place? How do you become more than just good beer? And that's kind of the biggest surprise of when I came in and started. It was not just making the beer.
If I were to drive up here, it's going to, from a brand wise, it's going to be Beer Zombies, right? Is there another location for Tenaya Creek or?
Nope. So this was the original. Well, the original Tenaya Creek was across town. They moved into this building in 2016. So that is now a different brewery. It's a brewery that took that over. So it's no longer Tenaya Creek. But yeah, this is the Tenaya Creek former building. It's obviously rebranded to Beer Zombies. But
it looks so cool outside.
Yeah, and if you come into the brewery, we have 28 beers on draft, and it's Beer Zombies and Tenaya Creek. So you'll be able to, you kind of get that best of both worlds. Tenaya Creek is definitely more on the traditional side of things. We have core beers, a hef, a brown, a pils, a Mexican lager, a West Coast, and a hazy that always are on. Where Beer Zombies is definitely more on the experimental side of things. We're releasing 4 to 5 beers a month. It's constantly changing. We specialize in weird and unique, sours and flavors and hazies. So you kind of get if you want to come in and have a traditional hef, we have that. If you want to come in and have milkshake, ice cream, blue raspberry sour, we have that as well, but it just lives under two different brands.
So the beer industry has obviously been making some headlines.
Yes.
And the overall, I think, alcohol industry is in a state of change. So give us a little bit of your perspective on where the craft beer industry is now, where you think it's going. You've obviously had some different waves of coming into it than most people do. Most people say I started as a home brewer,
Yeah,
right?
no.
I
Yeah,
mean,
my story is definitely on the unique perspective.
so what do you think about just the overall state of craft beer in general?
I think it's twofold. I think that there's been a lot of brewery closures, and I don't want this to come off as not being sensitive, but I feel that there was a boom. And anytime there's an industry, there's a boom. There's a lot of people that get into something that maybe shouldn't have got into it in the first place. And, obviously I don't want businesses to fail, but if you look at that, people were signing 10-year leases. Well, that was in 2016, 2015. And now 10 years from now, everyone's going out of business. Okay, well, that kind of tells me that maybe that wasn't the business that you should have been in. Maybe it was that you saw something that was very popular and you got in on it. And I'm not saying all, of course, there were some great breweries that went out of business. So I look at it as a trend, and I think that it's kind of weeding out the people that maybe were, they're onto something else now. They're on the next trend. And the people that are really sticking around, it's either they've become, a good destination business model and they understand that there's ebbs and flows to any business, or they're really making that beer that people are still seeking out. And I think there is both of those lanes to stay in. I think there's still a handful of breweries that are drawing lines, and there's a handful of breweries that when you're putting something out, people are very excited. And then there's the other side of things where the people line up or they go to is because it's their place. It's, like I said, it's a social house. It's a gathering place. It's a community. It's more than just the beer. So I think navigating both of those, putting out stuff that's very, very unique and interesting and being more than just a brewery is where we need to be at in the craft beer industry right now.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of those places that open just a tap room and, it's beer and, bring your dog and bring your food and it's all about the beer. It seems like got to have more of an experience. It's got to be I like when you say it's your place. I equate it a lot to, I grew up in the Chicago area, and if you were in Chicago proper, you used to have a tavern on every corner.
Exactly.
People would buy a house on a corner so they could convert it to a tavern. And that was the place, right? And I see that a lot as I travel around, is that community building. Give me kind of a visual for our listeners of what they can expect when they walk into the tap room.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I didn't start Beer Zombies to be a horror themed brewery, but we've definitely become that. I don't know whether that was from fans. I mean, don't get me wrong. Obviously, I love horror movies, and that's kind of been the branding and stuff. But I never thought like, hey, I want to open a horror themed brewery. So first thing you walk in, the walls are black. But it's still friendly. It's not like you come in and you feel out of place. A lot of vintage horror movie posters and props and things like that are on the walls. Double tap room, so you have lower tap room, which is the bar and the tap room, beer garden outside, then the upper tap room where we're at, arcade, glass walls into the brewery. So you kind of get that cool experience where you have little areas that you can go and drink. And if you want to be where everyone's watching the games and loud, perfect. If you want to kind of be upstairs where it's a little bit more chill and you have couches, that works as well. And then, like I said, the building itself is a 13,000 square foot bow truss building that was built in the 50s. So a wooden roof, really cool, a lot of natural light. The brewery production space is about 10,000 square feet. So a lot of stainless steel and things to look at when people kind of hang out. I'm here all the time. That office door is open, so I get a lot of people in and out, and it's kind of part of who I am and what I do. And I make sure that I take a walk every hour and see who's at the tap room and say hi, and go in the back. So it's very it's busy without feeling busy, if that makes sense. It's
Sure.
a lot of movement, which is good.
So what's the mix of your business? Obviously, when I came in, I saw the canning lines, and you guys do some distribution. You have the tap room, and I think you have another store.
Yeah, we have a couple more stores. So we have two more tap rooms in Vegas. Well, one's in Boulder City, but Vegas kind of outlying. That's more of it's a standalone. So it's Beer Zombies tap room, and it has a restaurant and live music and the whole bit. And then we have a small tap room bottle shop in the Southwest. And then from here, we do worldwide distribution. So we're actually the most distributed brewery in Nevada. So we hit about 20 countries, and we're up to about 38, 40 states. So we're constantly canning, packaging, a lot of logistics going on as far as that goes in the back. And then within Vegas, we also, since we have two breweries, we actually have two full distributions because they were grandfathered in. So not only do we have two brands, we have to deal with two local distributors that have two different rules and two different pickups and all the things. So the back is a very busy activation, and it's a working brewery. You're not going to come in here and be like, oh, it looks pretty and clean and no one's moving. It's still pretty and clean, but we work nonstop.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, when I came in, it was just I came in through the back way because we're not open yet here, but immediately I was like, there's a little production going on.
Yeah, so we're doing a double batch of our Boomstick Blonde today. Chasen, who you talked to, he is kegging off a American Light Lager tank, and then Johnny, who's cruising around, he's carbon and doing some CIPs. I mean, there's constant movement here.
Yep. So speaking of your team, what are some of the qualities that you look for? What both from the front of the house, the production side. What makes a good beer person for you?
That's a good question. A lot of my team has been in the beer industry as far as being consumers and drinkers. I think that generally that makes the best, at least front of the house staff, back of the house, mechanically inclined, and somebody that wants to be around me, 8 to 10, 12 hours a day, because I'm definitely a working owner. I'm here 5 days a week from, 6:37 in the morning until 6:37 at night. So it's finding those team members that kind of mesh and build. We have a very talented brewing team right now that is putting out some amazing beers. Weston, our head brewer, he sits on the Master Brewers of America Association. He gives his speeches, and he's very mechanically inclined. He came from Great Notion. He was there for 2 years as a head brewer. So building a proper leadership underneath me has been a big step. I was a one-man show for so long that it was very hard for me to realize that I need to start peeling off things and letting people go. Just like you're a one-man show.
Yep.
I mean, I did this by myself for 8 years. Everything. I had help, and I have a couple friends that have helped and now that work for us and do things. But as far as business and day-to-day, it was me by myself. So building those leaders and team people that want to grow with you and work with you is in the back is a huge part. Front, personality, beer knowledge, making people feel welcome. That's key.
Yeah, that hospitality. Well, let's switch beers. We could switch beers, but let's switch topics to beer.
Absolutely.
And talk a little bit about, what are some of the flagships? How do you decide what to brew when? Give us kind of the scope of that.
So on the Beer Zombie side, we have our core beers, just like every brewery. So we do a West Coast IPA called Zombie Duck Hunter. That actually just won a bronze medal for the Ultimate IPA competition. So it's drinking amazing. It's very San Diego style. It's crisp and dry and clear and hoppy and beautiful. It's one of my go-tos. We do Boomstick Blonde, which is our blonde ale. That's a core. Then we do a blood orange version of that as well. And then we also do a Mexican lager, which is called Los Guerreros, which is a collaboration with WWE superstar Chavo Guerrero Jr. So that's our permanent Mexican lager. And then we also do a hoppy Pilsner. So up until this month, we were calling it West Coast Pilsner, but we've been running into a little bit of TTP issues with using West Coast and having people understand. So we are rebranding that, and it's going to be called Dry Hopped Pilsner. But so that's our core beers. Those are year round always. And then on the Beer Zombie side, every month we do a brand new hazy IPA. It could be a single, double, or triple. And that is to kind of showcase where we're at. So we're using, the latest flowables and hops and products and anything that we can get our hands on to kind of really show off. And then we also do 2 fruited sours a month. So we do a lemonade based sour, and then we do a pastry based sour. And those come out always around the 15th. Then that's just the standard. Then on top of that, we fold in collaborations, we fold in, one-offs and things like that. But
get a little bit more artsy on the outside.
So if you see like behind you, that's the whole year of the.
Oh yeah.
So where it's all color coded and stuff. That's everything that I put on there. So I do that usually in like September, October for the next year, and come up with every name, concept, label idea for the whole year, and then we kind of just work off that and build backwards. So, like this month we're doing for our hazy IPA. Actually, this month is going to be a triple dry hopped West Coast IPA. So we're doing something a little different. And then from there, I'll get with Weston and we work backwards. Hey, this is what we have coming up. And then we build the recipe. He builds the recipe. He executes it. And then it goes from there.
Some beers that maybe you're most proud of.
So funnily enough, is Beer Zombies has kind of always been known for more unique out there styles. And we did a Sticka alt beer with our friends at South Low Brewing about 3 months ago. And it went over amazing. It drinks amazing. It's such a great beer. And randomly we were looking on tap 2 days ago and we realized that we are the third highest rated Sticka alt beer in the world.
So any other beers that you want to tell us about that you're kind of proud of?
Yeah, I mean, along with, like I said, those, I found that I have a deeper love of our core beers as well. I think that dialing those in to where people come in and they order those here on a regular basis really shows that, that's something to be proud of. But like I said, I mean, every month on the 15th, we release the new hazy or the new IPA, and just getting to work with somebody on the back end that is also excited about new products and different things have been super fun. The one that just came out last 3 or 4 days ago, it's called Brain Dead, and we did a New Zealand style West Coast Pilsner. So it's a mouthful, but what we did is we worked with Clayton Hops in New Zealand, and we got their amplifier oil, which is their fresh hops into an oil form. So we use that in the dry hop. So you kind of get these really cool fresh hop flavors and aromas going out. And then our grain bill, we added a little bit of rye to it. So it has this really light drinking, slightly spicy, and then the fresh hop flavors to it. And that beer is...
I'm salivating.
Oh, that beer is amazing. It's honestly overall in the brewery, probably our favorite beer we've done in a while. And it's great.
So we talked a little bit about this being a place where people come and being their place. What are some of the community events, some initiatives that you guys participate here in town to kind of make it the place, but also to kind of support the community?
Yep. So we do both. We do a ton of events, which obviously anything you do in the community, events to bring community in. But as far as supporting the community, we have a charity that we work with, a couple of them actually. We have one that's called Juniper's Joy, which is a yearly drive for the NICU, which is the hospital right down the way for us. So we collect diapers and books and all the things they need through donations via, if you buy a beer, we donate X amount. And then if you bring in products, you get the free beers. So we do that. We also work with a couple other charities in town. We work with some homeless banks and different products that way. And then on top of that, we do, actually this month we have, we're hosting it's called Ride for the Troops. And it's hosted by ex-MMA fighter Randy Couture. And what they do is they raise a bunch of money, and then we're the end spot that kind of collects the donations and stuff. So we're always kind of looking for ways to be involved, and then just events in general. I mean, we do monthly wrestling in the brewery. I know that's not going to charity, but it's more community, right? So
right,
people
sure.
that want to come in, we do, like we talked about, we do those Magic the Gathering tournaments. We do a horror movie in the brewery monthly. We do a yoga event in the every month. And then on top of that, we fold in, we have our Dodgers watch parties, and we have happy hours for any of the local teams. So if the Aces are on TV, which is our WNBA, we have happy hour automatic. The Knights are on TV, automatic happy hour. So kind of just become more of a community space where if you live in Vegas, we support Vegas.
That's awesome. And then we talked about tourists,
yes,
and visitors. And what are some things you do around that? Again, I can type in craft beer near me, and I'm going to have a dozen or so maybe come on.
Yeah, we have a bunch. Untapped has been a good tool. A lot of people still use that, and they kind of look on that. We're the highest rated brewery on Untapped, so people that are beer nerds automatically go that way. I think a big thing is that we have beer that is on the strip. So a lot of times there are people that are drinking the beer. They realize that, oh, it's a local beer, and they see it. So for example, we make the house beer for the Fountain Blue. So the official hazy IPA of Fountain Blue, if you're drinking a hazy IPA, you're looking at that knowing it's Beer Zombies. And then you realize we're a mile and a half away. We do the house beer for the Win and the Encore. So the same thing, it's kind of reaching out to where tourists are going to be that maybe you wouldn't have interaction with, and having that presence. So then if they enjoy it, then hopefully they come and visit us.
Well, yeah, I'm at the Sahara, so the Fountain Blue is not too far from
Yeah,
there.
just definitely check it out. It's
I'll
pretty
definitely
it's
have
pretty
to.
awesome. They only have that casino was built with 0 taps. Everything was supposed to be bottles and cans.
Yep.
But they have 2 taps, one in the sports book and one somewhere else, and we have both of them. So if you get a tap beer, you're getting Beer Zombies hazy IPA that was built specially for them.
Goals for the future. What are you thinking about? You're obviously, you mentioned earlier, and it's obvious as we had this conversation, you got a busy mind.
Yeah, very busy mind. A lot of goals. First and foremost, ride out this wave of this less drinking and craft beer and things like that, and really kind of hone in and be consistent and build a great product. I think that's going to be the thing that most people need to focus on. We're actively growing in barrel production. I mean, that's a big goal for us. We're since 2023 to current, we're up around 200%. The idea is to get to a spot where we as a team have discussed, we have a number in mind, and once we get there, we can bring more people in. So growing with a proper mindset, not just to grow. Everything that I'm doing right now is methodically planned out. There's no surprises. So even though everything is a surprise, the rest of that part is very mapped out. I want to make sure that we're not
all the equipment's a surprise.
Yeah, the equipment's a surprise. But I just make sure we're not overextending. We recently added more fermentation space and upgraded the canning line, and just kind of slowly getting to the point where we know that we're going to get to a number that is a viable number that we can produce and keep up with. Then on top of that, just to continue events and community. And, I travel a lot and do a lot of beer festivals. This last month we were in Sacramento for a beer fest, and then in Miami for Erie Jungle, and doing those where I go to these fests, but then also I'm hitting account visits and talking to the people that are buying our beers, and really kind of giving that one-on-one experience where it's nothing wrong with the salesperson, but if the owner of the brewery is coming to the gas station that sells your beer, that usually puts a little bit of a better, foot forward. So just really kind of being the fact that I came up as a beer nerd, waiting in line with and getting excited to talk to brewers. So now doing that exact same experience on the other side, and being true to the fact that that's how I want this company to be ran.
That's awesome. What do you do? Obviously baseball. Baseball's your happy place. But what are some other things you do outside of the business? More
family guy. I got children and a wife, and I like to spend time with them, and I like to get outdoors as much as possible.
Well, you're not in a place where you can get out.
It's very hard. We're actually going to go up to Mount Charleston on Sunday. So it's about 15, 20 degrees cooler in pine trees. And yeah, I'm actually, growing up small town in rural area, I have a lot of love for the outdoors. So anytime that I can get away, get into something green and pine trees, I do. But for the most part, travel is a big passion of mine. Love seeing new places. Big foodie, love trying, all restaurants and things like that. But for the most part, it's beer and family are my, and baseball. Beer, family, and baseball. I feel like that's a bumper sticker.
It's not. I'm not so much on the baseball. I'm a little bit more on the hockey side, but
I do. It's funny because people like to say bandwagon. I never watched a hockey game until we got a hockey team. So I'm not bandwagon. I fully admit that I didn't know anything about it, but it's a very exciting sport to watch. And obviously getting the Knights and being good was exciting to be a part of. And
most wonderful time of the year.
Yeah. I've watched the playoffs and we'll watch every game, and we have them on here all the time. So I'm definitely starting to get more into hockey.
I kind of live for that this time of the year.
Oh, yeah.
And you and I.
Double overtime, the last game for us.
Oh, I know.
It's past my bedtime.
Way past my bedtime. I'm on the East Coast, so it's almost wake up time.
Yeah.
One more question. A lot of people, and we talked about this as well, they're craft beer fans, or they're craft beer nerds, or they're home brewers, and they get this idea of, maybe I'll open my own brewery. What advice would you give them, having traveled that road a bit? I
think it's definitely doable. I don't want to be the negative Nancy, and because the joke is, what is it? The quickest way to have $1 million in the craft beer industry is to start with $2 million. So it's a lot of work. I think coming from the fanboy side of things, and then starting off small, we didn't get to really touch on it, but I opened up a small Beer Zombies bottle shop first. It was 400 square feet. It was 4 seats at the bar, 2 coolers, and 1 person, me and 3 other guys that would rotate to bartend. So that I think that model, and that kind of goes back to the corner house community model, I think is definitely doable. I think that if you are trying to get into this business because you're going to get rich, know that there's a lot of work and it takes a lot of pennies to get rich off of beer. You know, it's a game of volume and numbers right now. And then obviously over your tap room. So I think it's doable. I just think that you really have to be passionate about it, because
kind of passionate and eyes wide open at the same time.
exactly, because you have to realize that you're not going to work and clocking out and going home. This is 24 hours a day. You have to be aware of what's going on and trends and all the different things. So yeah, I think it's still doable. And I think that maybe that's the next wave, is the people that have been drinking for the last 15, 20 years, and you know, they still love it, and they see a lot of breweries closing down, and in their head they're like, I could do this better. Well, maybe that's what we need. Maybe we need that injection of I could do it better and mentality.
Well, I think the other thing that we're seeing, particularly in the Midwest, a number of craft breweries opening in the small towns.
Yeah.
Being the only place, right? In the small town, or maybe there's a tavern, right?
Yeah.
And you know, the family people aren't going to the tavern, you know, so they're opening up. We just had a place not too far north from me that opened up probably 5-6 years ago, and just by lots of relationships and so forth. There's a brewery called Pax Verum, and
I love those guys. Yeah, we know them pretty well.
So you know that. So do you know they just opened in Speedway?
Saw that.
Yeah, it's awesome. So, yeah, I haven't got him on the pod yet. I take the bus there all the time.
We've been friends with those guys for a long time. I mean, we were sending beer out to their early festivals, and you know, when there was only a handful of people.
Well, yeah, their Way Out Festival is right up your alley.
Right? Yeah. Really good guys.
So that small town model seems to be one that we're seeing pop up a lot.
I've been kind of noticing that same thing. I mentioned that we have one in Boulder City. So Boulder City is population maybe 15,000, but it's the largest city by area in the state of Nevada. So it's 15,000 spread out over 50 miles. But it's very small town. It's one little main street drag that has, you know, maybe 20 businesses on it. It's us. There's some restaurants and bars and antique shops, and we're constantly busy up there, which is nice. That model is not a bad idea. You know, it's
and you know, fortunately, unfortunately, there's also tends to be a lot of buildings.
Yeah, there is. You know, and there's something to be said about a captive audience, right? Yep. Like you said, if you're the only place to grab a good beer in town,
you're the only place.
You're the only place to grab a good beer in town. So I mean, yeah, there's.
And again, I think that the whole story, as long as you're walking in with a plan, you're walking in with eyes wide open. Like I said, we've seen a number of those in the last 4 or 5 years pop up in the small towns, at least in my area. So I think that's another model that makes a lot of sense.
I think food is a big one now.
Yeah, you got to have food.
Which is crazy because we don't. So that's something that's when you said what's next, I've totally spaced it. So we're working on that. Kitchen is going to be the next one. Right now we rely on food trucks, and which is great. You know, you get different venues and stuff, but you're also relying on somebody else to support food for your business. So generator goes out, flat tire, you don't have food that night. So
yep. Okay, one last question, but certainly not the least question. Yes. What beer should I try today?
Brain Dead. We're doing Brain Dead. Right after this, we're doing that New Zealand.
I'm feeling brain dead already. Yeah, it is. Might as well help. And we are back, and the tap room is now open.
The tap room is open. There's people in there drinking.
Yeah, well, there's people in here drinking too. So we're gonna have a little taste of the Brain Dead Hazy Fresh Hop New England Pilsner. That's a mouthful, but I can't wait for it to be a mouthful. So I'm going to take a sip of this, and I'm going to let you kind of describe some of the work that went into this.
Yeah, absolutely. So like we were saying earlier, this is a fresh hop amplifier oil from Cascade, fresh hop amplifier oil that we used that has Nelson, Motueka, and New Zealand Cascade in it. So the oil itself is more of like an intensified addition for aroma, and you kind of get like those, you get, you know, peach and tropical passion fruit, but it's still a Pilsner base, and then with some rye in it. So you're getting a little bit of that spice on the malt.
I thought there was a little bit of rye.
it's a dry hop pilsner. So I mean, you're getting it's almost like a very light IPA style. You're getting pilsner, you're getting hops. It's kind of the best of both worlds for me.
Well, the aroma is also outstanding,
and it's also 4.6%. You know, it's kind of in that spot where you can have a few, and it's not gonna.
So yeah, it feels like you're drinking a big flavorful hop beer that's going to knock you on your butt, right?
Yeah.
Because
But
they're 6, 7 generally but it's super smooth.
Yeah, it's a big popular style right now, and this one's just a very interesting way to do it with the fresh hop oil. So you're kind of taking that, you know, their hop harvest was a couple months back because they're on the other side of the equator. So now you can, in theory, you could do 2 fresh hop beers a year. You could do an American style fresh hop beer, and then you could do one on the other side of the world.
No, this is awesome. Well, hey, I want to thank you, Chris. I know it was kind of short notice,
Absolutely.
but love the conversation. I'm going to be walking around here checking all. There's a lot. There's a lot to see here.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely going to be back. So, folks, when you're in Las Vegas, don't miss Beer Zombies Brewing Company. Take some time out from the casino and take some time out from all the other action. Come out and meet Chris and have a beer. Cheers, Chris. The Brews Line Roadshow is a production of The Brews Line and presented by Tagabrew USA. Theme music for The Brews Line Roadshow is provided by Mikey Garrett of the band Fever Dream. You can find out more about The Brews Line at brewsline.com.